Thanks everybody for joining us today. My name's Nicola Carroll. I'm part of the Inextricable IG team, and I'm a program director. I'm going to be hosting today and asking all the questions to our panelists. I think there's a few more joining, but we'll start anyway. Just for everybody, if there's questions, if you could use, instead of using the chat, if you could use the Q&A option at the top. For today, we're gonna run through some questions that we have for the panelists, and then at the end we will go back to some Q&A, and there's enough time at the end to ask questions for everybody. So, introduction of why we're here today. So digital transformation is our topic, and this is critical for businesses to succeed in today's environment. So over the past couple of years, we've seen the first ever lockdown because of COVID, and we also saw the fastest economic recovery because of organisation embracing digitalisation and change. But now we're heading into recession. So we've had some big shocks at all levels around the world, and for organisations to keep up with this, we need to be agile and productive. So starting a digital transformation requires a new mindset, a shift away from traditional thinking, and to work more collaborative and experimental approach. So these new ways of working, the new ways of approaching work reveal new solutions and can improve customer experience and drive employee innovation. So these will help your companies grow to the next level. So who we have here with us today are experts in this field from different areas, and they're going to share with us their knowledge and experience that they've had. So to introduce the group, we've got Will Wigmore. He's a former CIO, transformation director, and group technology executive. He's worked with large industry leading companies such as Maersk, the largest integrated transport company. Now he's an independent consultant and works with many multinational companies and SMEs regarding their technology strategies.
Hello,
and
Nicola.
we have Ondrej Polak from Lindsay Aerospace. Lindsay Aerospace just won the UK Manufacturing Award last week, so congratulations.
Thanks, Nicola.
He designed and is implementing the long-term digital strategy for Lindsay Aerospace. They're also currently working on an AI-driven production system, which is first in its kind in the world, and they've secured a grant from the UK to do this. So massive implementation going on there and loads of experience to share with you today. We also have Saurabh, who is part of IG, Inextricable Group. He comes with a raft of SAP experience. He has worked for many of the IT consultancy firms, Capgemini, TCS, and he's also worked at SAP. So he heads up as our technology director and can share with you his insights. So let's get started. So I'll start with Will first. You have vast experience from companies such as BAT, Coates and Mars. You've worked for many Fortune 500 companies in the past and have seen the good, bad and the ugly of digital transformation. Can you tell us from your experience how a CEO or a CIO would view digital transformation?
Yeah, sure. Let's try and do both. Let's try and answer both of those parts. I think from a CEO's point of view, a modern, contemporary CEO and board for that matter, they look at it as an opportunity. I think that's the first statement. And for a CIO, I think it's a right, in terms of their duty of care and their responsibilities nowadays. It's a right, but also very much a leadership challenge. So let me just unpack those two statements. So from a CEO point of view, I'll give you two perhaps contrasting examples. One, which is one of my former employers, Maersk, who have been through a transformation from a conglomerate to an integrated and joined up transport and logistics company. So a major series of divestments in order to focus on an end-to-end process for customers. So you can see that the CEO's thinking behind that was very much customer-centric and dependent on technology, both in terms of the interaction with customers, both B2B and B2C, and the consequential dependency on the technologies for performing integrations, for example, integration of that information through an entire supply chain. So Soren, he was very much driven by customer centricity and making sure that he could build revenues, build growth using roughly the same or even lower cost base. So that was the opportunity that he saw from a leadership point of view, from the company perspective. The second example I'll give you, I've come from this morning, a program board meeting for a much smaller company, professional services company, where the organization is kind of technology driven, and they're now reaching a ceiling in terms of their business growth. And in order to go to the next scale, in terms of their ambition, they've got to completely re-engineer and re-platform a lot of their systems in order to enable that growth. And there's some, absolutely terrific passion that comes with that sort of SME kind of lens as well. But both very different businesses, very different CEOs as well, but both really looking at opportunities through digital. Let me just say a couple of words about the CIO role as well. I said it's a right for a CIO. If you're going into a company nowadays, and the CIO doesn't have the accountability for at least some part of the digital estate, it's a strange thing nowadays. I think it's a seat at the table that CIOs have been striving for over the last sort of decade or longer. But it comes with a significant leadership challenge, because the expectation on a CIO, I think, is really to perform not only the transformation of their own function, their own department, but also to be both a catalyst for the rest of the organization in terms of making something happen in terms of that transformation. Secondly, being a communicator, so being one of those people from the leadership of the company that is able to put forward that compelling case that engages and inspires people in the CIO's own group, but also much more broadly than that. And then, of course, thirdly, is really about delivery and making sure that technology contribution is well founded and is well executed as well. So, yeah, CEO's opportunity, CIO's leadership challenge, Nicola.
Thanks, Will. Brilliant. I've just seen quite a few people join in, and if there are questions, we'll get to questions at the end, but there's a Q&A tab instead of chat, which I know a lot of people use and are used to using. There's a Q&A tab on the top. If people can use that for any questions and answers, and then we will have time at the end to go over them with everybody. So next, Ondrej. One sec. So you were a keynote speaker last week, as we were saying, where you won your award in Liverpool at the UK Manufacturers event. Tell us a little bit about your learnings and how your organisation, Lindsay Aerospace, approaches digital transformation.
Great, thanks, Nicola. Really good question. I think we all facing more or less the same challenge. So I come from manufacturing background. We actually make things, and what's really important to us that we are very pragmatic about what we do. So I think one of the key takeaways that I was talking about in Liverpool in the Smart Factory Expo is that you really need to start with understanding what the problems and challenges that you're facing. That should really be the starting point, because if you understand that, that's only at that point you can start looking into the solutions. I think in manufacturing or in tech environment, we could get really excited about certain technologies or or a software, but really, is it a good return on investment? Is this something that we should be focusing on? So really understand your problems and challenges, and then you also need to be able to rank them, because they won't all be equal. So you need to be really hitting the things that will provide a good return. I think something that Will was talking about the leadership and vision. I think that's equally important, because once you know what your opportunities are, you need to be able to present it in a way that people want to engage with you, but not just people within your own team. But if we're talking about a significant digital transformation that runs throughout the organization, you really need to put together a team of people that will span the organization. And that will be your guiding coalition. We need to think about change management. So I'm now moving on to a change management subject. So first you need to get people to realize that they need to move, and they need to put a coalition of people together with you. So I'm not just talking about senior executives. The different leadership comes from various sources. So there'll be people even down as low as shop floor that you need to engage with. We're talking about selling that vision, which is very important. So I'll choose a different language when I'm trying to influence a CEO of our organization to, if I'm talking an engineer. These two people are, interested in completely different things. What's also quite important, so digital transformation normally takes years. It's not a matter of it's a 3 months project. For our organization, we've been going at this since 2018. So I really had to be careful about short-term wins, because imagine if you work on something for such a long period of time, if all you can deliver is a nice presentation without any results, that's not going to cut it. So you need to have a vision where you're going, but you also need to plan for short-term wins along the way. And one of the things that I'm also learning as time goes on. Initially, we wanted to do a lot of things ourselves. So we thought, well, we can do most of the things ourselves. But I think now we're starting to move more towards certain things that we want to buy into the organization, certain things that we want to outsource to experts as well. I think there's nothing wrong with either of these strategies. So for example, if I'm buying something into the business, and this could be a piece of software, I really need to make sure that if I'm buying it, I'm going to use it to its full potential. There's nothing worse than buying a piece of software and then only use 5% of it, because then you're just spending loads of money unnecessarily. If I'm engaging with experts, I want to make sure that they are the real experts, that they can, I'll hold them accountable. I'll risk assess it as well. But what I'm trying to say, I think the big learning is that you don't have to do it all on your own. And I honestly think you should not do it all on your own, but you have to be careful who you work with. That's kind of the main message around this, and make, buy or outsource kind of equation. But if I was to do it again, I'd perhaps be more open. I think these are the key learnings, really.
Thanks, Ondrej. Thanks. So next we go to Saurabh. So you have many years of SAP experience working at Capgemini, TCS, and you've also worked at SAP. So can you tell us a bit about SAP's approach to digital transformation?
Well, thank you, Nicola. Well, I'll take cues from both Will and Ondrej, because I think they have touched upon this topic of digital transformation very aptly. And I would really agree with them when they say that, this is not a one-time process. It's an ongoing journey. It is something that you dive into with a long-term vision. So that vision has to be sold not only to the say to the CIO level or the CXO levels. It is something which has to be driven with passion throughout the organization. And well, the way I think that SAP looks at it is SAP generally, the companies who have been implementing SAP, whether it is large organizations, big segments, SMEs, anybody who has been implementing it, SAP has been always formed as a core of that organization. So that usually entails to capture the core data of the entire organization across all the departments within the organization. So that becomes the core ERP, so to speak. So the way that SAP has looked into it, toward their outlook towards digital transformation, is that they have constantly coming up with the innovations, the innovative solutions. They have practically reinvented the ERP completely. So to support the digital transformation, that is going to happen or is going to be envisioned by the partners, or envisioned by the companies in the coming decades. So, well, what they propose is that you first transform the core of your system, which is any organization essentially runs on the three pillars. It is systems, peoples, and processes. So when you're talking about digital transformations, you are essentially trying to transform one of these three pillars or all of them. That is why it takes time, for people to adapt to it. So they start with the system, which is SAP, which is the digital core, and you bring it to the latest versions, like you have S/4HANA, you have RISE with SAP. So these are the different offerings that SAP has come up with, where you either come from the traditional way of working to the latest and the innovative way. You can start using, say, connectors through the various integration mechanisms. You can start talking about AI and ML, start integrating your plant and the businesses back to the SAP system, and start looking at SAP not only as an ERP, but as an enabler for the businesses to take the smart decisions at the right time, at the right place. So the transformations can be drilled down to people as well as to the processes. So I think that is where I believe, with my my journey so far with the digital systems that I have worked with, other companies that I have worked with, at least I have been associated in embarking those journey towards digital transformation. They start essentially with the core of the organization, which is the ERP, to move it towards the latest versions, and then start re-optimizing onto the processes, and then parallelly work on training the people to adapt those processes. So as Ondrej was saying that if you are taking the system, don't only focus on, say, maybe say 5% or 10% of those functionalities. Start engaging with, say, multiple dimensions of that product, so that you can really explore what is best fit for an organization in particular. So that is how you don't get fixated to one kind of a solution, but what the solution which fits the bill, for that particular organization. So that becomes sort of a customized solution. But yes, this is something that an organization would, in the long run, would be more interested to use, because it becomes sort of a plug and play. So whatever you like in HR software, or you like say payroll software, or you like something like a leave and attendance or something, anything that maybe a warehouse management system. So all that data is collated into a ERP, and then is able to give you smart analytics and predictive analytics on basis which you can take your decisions going forward. So I think that's how the journey has been. Yep.
Thanks, Saurabh. So coming back to Will, a recent PwC survey revealed that 60% of executives say digital transformation is their most critical growth driver for 2022 and 23. However, many organisations are still reluctant to take the journey. What are some of the factors holding them back, and what's your advice for such organisation to reap the benefits of digital transformation?
Yeah, thanks, Nicola. I had a look at that survey. It's which is quite good, and it's quite useful. I don't know if we can share that. I think it would be a useful starting point for anybody who is setting out on a digital transformation, just to get some thoughts and ideas from that. I find the first part actually quite difficult to answer. So what's holding them back? There should be nothing actually holding people back from doing this. It's a well-trodden path now. And I mean, ultimately, it is a risk and reward decision, and typically because it's quite fundamental in terms of the scale of change and expensive in terms of the cost of it, I guess boards grapple with that risk and reward equation. For some companies, grapple with it for a lot longer than others. Let's put it that way. But I think just to build on one of the points that Ondrej was making about that leadership piece, that's one of the things that I think companies should really be, just going after and sort of placing their bets, even if it is a bit ambiguous or they're a little bit uncertain how it's going to go. There is a way of just taking a first step, and I'd encourage, that would be part of my advice, was if you're uncertain about it, then try something small to start with. I think most companies that are born in the last few years, they don't have that issue, because they're they're already digital, right? So it's probably the advice I'm going to give is probably more to the traditional companies that have been around a while and have maybe got a, kind of, sort of legacy landscape to deal with as well. So I'd offer two thoughts if they're still struggling to get a digital momentum. One is have a look at the market, have a look, take a market view, take a look at your competitors, and if you can see that your competitors are doing things faster than you can, whether that's new product introductions or speed to market, new brands, or just being slightly more agile in terms of responding to consumer demands. If you're a B2C organization, take a look at it, and I think you'll get some advice that comes forward from that market view is looking at those competitors. And then I think it'll help you decide whether your digital transformation is going to be market driving, i.e. you're really pushing it out there in terms of your industry, or whether you're going to be market driven and following and imitating others. So that there are certain industries where I suspect, they're a little bit behind compared to others, either because of the nature of the industry, like it's a B2B or it's a very heavy asset industry, not a natural kind of business to consumer kind of concept, or if they're very regulated, like I see it in pharmaceuticals, for example, where I still think pharmaceuticals is a bit behind many other industries, and I think the reason for it is a lot of the regulatory requirements that they have around there. So, but even in those industries, even in those, take a look at the market. There are some good case studies. I think probably everybody thinks of Rolls-Royce when they think of heavy industries, Rolls-Royce Aerospace, and how they transformed to a more subscription-based model, and brought there. And if you look at the banking sector as well, there's been a phenomenal. There was a lot of resistance from regulators in that area, but now it's much more opened up and has proven to be the case. So look, the market view is one thing. I think if you're still struggling, I'd go with a financial view. So, for example, back to that risk reward debate, and there's many stakeholders on that boardroom. So some are really interested in the opportunities and keeping up with the market and ahead of the market. Others are more interested in the numbers. And I think things like, it's maybe a statement of the obvious, but when you sell online, you normally get paid on that day, or you often get paid on that day, as opposed to funding your customers for a period of 30 days or 60 days or 90 days, whatever your terms of trade are. So have a think about the impact that going digital could have on your working capital. And hook in your CFO and your finance controllers into that kind of debate and see how you can get some real good financial metrics, improved by going online as well. So I don't hold back would be my message. And if you're struggling, take a look at the market, or take scrutinize some of the benefits that you can get from that risk reward from a finance point of view. Back to you, Nicola.
Thanks, Will. So next on to Ondrej. So I know there are many hurdles in your digital journey, and as you said earlier, it can be a long journey. Based on your experience at your organisation and other organisations you've worked with, what are the top 5 critical success factors for digital transformation?
Okay, so I think one of the really important things, and that's often highly underestimated, is that it takes a completely different person to run an organization to what it takes to change an organization. So this brings me on to the point around the change management and leadership. I know we've mentioned it so many times, but I think it's so important because very often these digital transformations it perhaps start as a little bit of a side project. Well, let's do digital, but I think it's a lot more than that. It's certainly not something that you can just fit alongside of your normal job if you are serious about a transformation. And I saw it in my previous employment that this was given to a person who was very operationally driven. and just came from that sort of production environment. And even though there were some good ideas and good insights, that person wasn't clearly in a leadership sort of position. So the leadership, like long-term digital transformation, wasn't that something that they found it really comfortable to be in. So the change management skills are essential. I would also think that we need to embed digitalization strategy into the business strategy. There's no such a thing as, okay, let's have a strategy for data, let's have a strategy for digitalization. I think it all needs to be driven from overall business strategy. Many organizations start with the technology and then try to fit it into the problem. So going back to my previous point about first understand your problems and challenges, then look into the solutions. I genuinely think that technology is just 1/3 for your success. You've got people and processes and organization that you need to think about. So the organizational structure is quite important. So for example, where I work now in Lease Aerospace, us as a team in process development, we sit on the side of day-to-day activities, but we don't get involved in day-to-day activities. So we can actually focus on long to medium term initiatives and projects. So if you are involved in day-to-day and most of your day is just filled with day-to-day issues, it's so hard to focus on big picture. You also need to understand what your budget is and resource that you have available. Imagine if you have £1 million and 5 people and 2 years to deliver, the scope surely is going to be completely different to if you have £5 million and 50 people to work on the transformation. So I think that's what you also need to think about when you're setting up your vision. And one of the interesting points that I picked up in one of the presentations in Liverpool that spoke about diversification. I thought that was really important and interesting. So very often we end up with legacy problems. We have challenges that are based on the things that happened 10, 15, 20 years ago. And it was completely different landscape. It was a group of people that designed the process or solution, maybe that didn't include, the end customer, and we have a problem now that we're trying to deal with. So if we are thinking about a transformation, we need to think about the teams that will be doing this transformation as well and making them as diverse as possible. The example that was used, I thought it was really interesting, was around crash test dummies. So apparently in 1950s, they were designed as sort of middle-aged white males, and there was no consideration for women and kids, and you were a lot more likely to die if you were one of them. And the point was made around diversity of the team. And it wasn't until 2010 when people realized that something needs to change. So it made me think about diversity in a positive way. So I don't know if I said 5 or 6 or 4, but that's all I can think of at this point in time. So back to you, Nicola.
Thanks, Ondrej. That was brilliant. So Saurabh, at IG, we have completed many SAP RISE implementations. We are one of the very few approved SAP RISE partners. Why is SAP RISE a game changer? And why do you think we at Inextricable Group are so successful in this area?
Well, it's a good question, though. Why is a game changer? I'll take that first, and then I'll come to where do we come in. Okay, so for that, I need to explain a bit about what SAP RISE is. So SAP RISE is basically it's a change in the strategy, the way that the industries used to look at SAP initially. So this is moving away from the initial model of selling the perpetual licenses onto the subscription-based licenses. So that also means essentially you're moving away from traditional on-prem solution to something like like you have Microsoft Office or you have O365 sort of a model. So you're going per user, per month basis or per year basis sort of subscription. What you get as a part of a package is that you do away with the initial hiccups of setting up an SAP system, thinking about or talking to or negotiating with different hardware vendors, worrying about your network pieces, securities, lapses, OS patches, upgrades, etc. I mean, the bundle of services that SAP is supposed to sell. I'm not one of the sellers of SAP, I would say, but yes. So the idea essentially is that you have to move away from the perpetual-based licensing to the subscription-based licensing. And the concept behind it is that the information technology or IT has been always been an enabler for a business. And again, I'll take a cue from Ondrej when he says that you have to integrate the strategy of digital, the digital strategy with the business strategy. So when you're talking about going, with digital transformation for any organization, the key is that SAP the IT is an enabler. Okay, so you have to do away all your decisions when you're talking about IT has to support your business decisions. So when as a CIO or as an IT head, if you are spending most of your time in making sure that your systems are up and running, and you keep on having or securing the time of your people in upgrading those systems and managing those systems, the hardware and the network pieces, or worrying about when the next attack is going to come from. So all that is worrying things, so to speak, are taken away from you and is hosted with or is parked with SAP, and is outsourced to SAP. So IT per se is then keeps, but they can focus on doing what they are supposed to do the best, enable the business, transform and come up with the innovative solutions which can be integrated and can make business easy, or the life of the business people easy. So that is where they come up with. But traditionally, what we have seen is that in last few years when we have been doing RISE with SAP is that the moment that's this is not basically removing the people from their current job, but enabling them to do little better than what they have been doing earlier. So this helps them to transform and optimize their skill sets and their time so that they can do the digital transformation properly. Now, where do Inex comes in is that we have experience in both the fields. We have the experience in technical front, where we know that how do we move the traditional systems to RISE. Okay, and also we have the expertise from the business front, where we can go and talk to the business people. We can see that what exactly the business needs in terms of the requirements from the IT, because many a times the way that we have seen it is that the expectations are not aligned. Okay, so when the expectations are not aligned, specifically within the organization, so there is a lot of information that the business relies on IT to provide, but those are not coming either on time, or it's taking a lot of time for them to develop it or prepare the reports and then submit it to the management or the decision makers, which actually does not help them, because you need the information when you need it. You can't wait up for days, because this is not the world that where you have to wait up for information for say 2 or 3 days, or MRP running for a material resource planning running for few say 30-40 hours. So you can't wait up for such kind of a turnaround time. So what you do is that you come up with innovative solutions, and it enables the IT team to come up with those innovative solutions. And we as in Inex, we help them to arrive, set the expectations right between the business and the IT teams, help them move towards RISE, and then take the most out of this investment. So that ROI of what Will was talking about, that what is the budget and what is the expense that that you are going to spend of going digital or going online, that is recovered as soon as possible. So bring down that ROI, improve the overall TCO, and make sure that you are on the right path while you are talking about the digital transformation. Hope that answers your question, Nicola.
It does. Thanks, Saurabh. And moving back to Will. So every organisation is unique. Cultures are different. The operating rhythm is different. But we've seen organisations try to replicate other digital strategies from businesses, but often these result in failure. So the question is, why is it that these can fail, and what advice for organisations would you give to approach digital transformation and uncover critical success factors?
Yeah, that's I think copying or imitating others is a perfectly valid approach, but particularly if you're playing catch up, and the reasons for your transformation are market driven as opposed to market driving. If you're market driving, you have to be the innovator, and I think you can't copy. You can look for sources of inspiration in other areas, but there's nobody to copy, right? So you got to do it yourself. But copying in itself is not a bad strategy, as long as you do it, in some way a little bit better than the people that you're following. I think you know, what's really important here, and what maybe some companies have tried to do in copying, is they've copied the wrong thing. And this comes back to the context of the transformation that you're engaging and embarking on, and secondly the timing of it, right? So let me deal with the timing first. I'll just go back to, you know, you don't start unless you're ready to start. Those factors that Ondrej talked about, the kind of things that need to be true for you to make a success of your digital transformation. If you start without them, you know, you may start quicker, but actually eventually you'll be slower, because you'll have to take a step back and a step back and a step back to work those things through. And the same with what Saurabh was mentioning about alignment. If SAP is your target, then if you haven't got alignment around that, you're going to again run into difficulties later on. So from a timing point of view, you're passionate, you're eager, all of those things, but just make sure that there's specific things that are critical to success that you've got, and they're true before you start, or you know that you can get that alignment on it. And then let me just switch back to the context. What I mean by context here is, don't copy something that's not appropriate for you to copy. And there's probably, I mean, there's so many different definitions of what, you know, the transformation is. And I think, you know, if I think about it in like kind of 4 practical examples that I've seen, one is this, one is a technical automation, which is kind of like, you know, a cookie cutter, a based approach to actually implementing, standardizing processes, standardizing technology, and standardizing operating model through an organization where you've got consistency. And your critical success factor there is your ability to execute repeatably. So the repeatability becomes a really important thing. Then if you kind of go up the kind of scale, you're talking about more of a technical optimization. For example, you're not just dealing with one strand of the business, you're dealing with migration, for example, to cloud, you know, your whole estate going into cloud. And the critical success factors there really center around, you know, things like the agility. You're bringing in agility, and making the right technical decisions become very important. So that's the kind of technical optimization. If I scale up again and you talk about digital optimization, that's taking one part of your business and really optimizing it. For example, the customer interactions or the vendor relationships. And, you know, if it's a customer orientated digital optimization, you've got to think about how you take the customers with you, because you can't just put it out there and hope for the best. So the success factors there become how you engage with your customers, how you incentivize them, and how you bring them on. So the kind of change management message that Ondrej was talking about, but applied to the external world as well. And then the final one, the fourth and final one I'll talk about, is the full scale, the full fat kind of version of a business transformation, where you're changing everything fundamentally about the company, how you go to market, your customer centricity. And there, I think the success factors, I think Ondrej captured them really well in terms of that you know, you're having to prime the organization for change and bring in new leadership styles and get that blend of leadership styles right. So I think if you're going to copy, my advice is, make sure you know what your context is and what your scale of transformation is, whether it's technical automation or technical optimization, if it's digital optimization, or if it's a full-on business transformation. Copy the right case, I think is the message there. Nicola, back to you.
Brilliant, thanks, Will. So that's all my questions for today. And I can see we've got some questions coming through for people. So I'll start with them questions. We have got just under 20 minutes. If we don't end up getting, we'll have 5 minutes at the end just to have a keynote from everybody. If we don't get to all the questions, we will answer them on email and send them out to people, and there'll be contact details to contact anybody that you wish to in the future. So the first question is for Ondrej. having successfully overseen digital transformation projects in the past, have you seen productivity improvements or reductions in waste in your operations directly attributed to digital transformation?
Absolutely. I think it'd be it would be strange if I said we didn't, because then what were we doing for the last 4 years? So we do get a lot of data from shop, a lot of value from shop floor data. So for example, all of our production assets are equipped with machine monitors, and it's focusing around OEE. So for those of you that are not familiar with OEE, it's overall equipment effectiveness. So, for example, it helps us to understand where scrap and attrition is coming from, some of the assets that are not as productive as they should be. And with that data, what we are able to do with it, we can visualize, we can prepare that data, contextualize it, so enrich in other ways, enrich that data with information around different shapes, different products, and then we can start very quickly proving the hypothesis that people may have. And once we hone in onto the area that needs improving, it's quite easy actually to make an improvements. The improvements are not the difficult bit. The difficult bit was always where to focus. So, for example, we have reduced the attrition by about 200,000 in absolute terms in 1 year, just by focusing on the right areas and removing the problematic jobs or routing them differently. The same goes for productivity, just by enforcing the right standards. So if we have a machine that needs to run at a certain rate, but it's not running at a certain rate, it's all visible. So we get a lot of data, we get a lot of results and value from just what's fundamentally quite basic data visualization and analysis in the field. So I think these are the main values that we get out of the digital transformation at the moment. And there's a bit around AI, but I just don't want to get too kind of technical, and it's a little bit sensitive as well in terms of IP. So.
Thanks, Ondrej. Thanks. Let's go with, I think this is for you, Saurabh. This is SAP from Karen. So companies have many systems. Should they be integrated to be successful in digital transformation? Can you give us an example of an SAP integration you have delivered?
Well, yes, of course. I think one of the key aspects of transforming your entire landscape and go digital is that your solutions should be able to talk to each other, and it's essentially to make life easy for everybody. So integration is one of the key pillars of digital transformation. Your systems, which are maybe scattered around, they have to talk to each other via the APIs, or whether it is on JSON or REST, or whatever the mechanism that you wish to use. But essentially, integration is one of the key pillars where it has to whether it is done in the first phase or the second wave or the third wave. That's the part of the design and the planning that that you're supposed to do. But yes, I would completely agree that integration is one of the key things that you should do. I think there are middlewares which are available, both from SAP and non-SAP solutions, which are available, through which you can perform those integrations. And well, we have been doing this in our projects largely with the SAP clients. And one of our clients has recently gone on Rise with SAP, which is Apollo Tires, I would say. And they have a huge landscape with, I think, close to 50 to 70 endpoints in which the different systems have been there. Both SAP, non-SAP systems are there. And you have to have a proper plan in place. Sometimes it takes a lot of time for you to go live with such integrations. But then once the messages or the information starts flowing through these systems, you are able to connect to your vendors, to your customers, to the different systems. It makes more of a digital world on view, and makes the information passing the information quite an easy task. So which is why integration is one of the it is one of the important tasks, and it has to be considered while you're planning for your digital transformation, along with, of course, the even if you're talking about AI, ML, or you're talking about NLP, you're talking about integrating your plants, the warehouses, where the information has to be collected from these sources. It has to be transferred to your core system, basis which you have to run the analytics on top of it, take key decisions, actionable decisions, which can go back to these respective systems and perform the actions or have business rule management. The idea behind is that these systems have to be integrated. So So once you have those, that enables you to take the decisions and move your journey forward. So yes.
Thanks, Saurabh. Let's see. So, Will, this one for you. Employees are critical to a successful digital transformation. What can you tell us about the challenges around reskilling and upskilling the workforce when it comes to implementing new technologies?
Yeah, I think this is a kind of whole webinar in itself, this question, isn't it? I mean, the first thing I would say is, transparency with people and engagement with them, I think is key, because, it does change. People have their concerns, their doubts, their disbeliefs about, any kind of change. And that's, the same for a digital transformation as well. So I think it needs to be handled carefully. There are, of course, fantastic opportunities actually for reskilling from a digital point of view. And then just, a couple of things that come to mind are, digital business product management is kind of like booming at the moment. I think I see, quite a lot of companies struggling. I know we did at Maersk actually was one of the things that we really struggled with in terms of finding the right caliber of people who can do that product manager or product owner role. So start early with that one. It would be my suggestion. I think cloud architects and those kind of specialisms, those jobs didn't exist a while ago. So I think there's plenty of carrots in terms of for people to go after in terms of reskilling. And there's also commercial roles, so there's kind of like kind of business related roles like the product manager. There's technical roles like infrastructure, traditional infrastructure, people reskilling to being cloud engineers and integration specialists. And then thirdly, I think the commercial element as well. So, the way you buy software and services nowadays to fit together on your landscape is totally different. And I think the commercial know-how that's needed to buy a subscription-based service from a company, which often only has a 1-year life cycle. You might only pay up for a year, as opposed to a perpetual license, which, as its definition suggests, is forever. So there's lots of ways of doing it. I mean, it's good techniques I've seen is really, just as I said, that transparency and the engagement with people, making sure that they also have the opportunities, like, things like O'Reilly, and there's amazing sources where you can go and skill yourself up. And I think if companies are providing that in parallel to the sort of change activities where people can go at self-paced learning, they really came into their own during the pandemic as well. And I think that kind of mindset for people to do that self-skilling is really embedded now. And I think the same with accreditations. All the big software vendors, they're absolutely gagging for you to join, join in their accreditation program, whether it's to do with Azure or, whatever, technologies it could be. I think those accreditations, if your company is going down an AWS route, of course, go get some accreditations from AWS, and that puts you as an individual in good stead for your transformation and for that endpoint as well.
Thanks, Will. And I see, Ondrej, do you want to add to that, seeing as you must have to go through a lot of reskilling and upskilling, especially within your team, being so central to all the changes happening at Lindsay Aerospace?
Yeah, I honestly think that having the right skills and people within the team, that's pretty much everything. Because even like when you were talking about which architecture or which cloud provider you work with, that can very often be determined by the people within your team who have it as a project they work on. So by them having the right understanding and knowledge of the landscape, then they'll make that decision. And hopefully, if they have the right skills and knowledge, then they'll make a right decision. And you can't do everything yourself. Obviously, you wouldn't be a leader if you wanted to do everything yourself. So you then need to put together a team of credible and knowledgeable people that'll help you to transform the organization. So been doing actually quite a lot, whether it's following the citizen development model and just getting people to kind of upskills on the job. In the UK, apprenticeship is also quite a big thing these days, because most employers like us would be paying apprenticeship levy, and then you can get that money back by putting people through apprenticeship route. So we have, within my team, we have 2 degree level apprentices started this year. In manufacturing, quite the strange skills. So one of them is training to be a software engineer, and another one is training to be a data analyst and / data scientist. So you can see the kind of the convergence between IT and OT. So these skills would traditionally be associated with the IT department, but we are bringing them closer to where the value is actually executed, and it's closer to the shop floor. We have quite a big project that we want to do with Cambridge University on sort of redefining the role of IT in the 4th industrial revolution, or in the age of the smart factory. So I think I'm really excited about that, because I think traditionally we look at IT as a cost center. In fact, it should be a value center. We do but there is a risk also in what we're doing. So we do a lot of development within our team, but I feel like we need to be regulated a little bit, because are we working with the right sort of programming language when we build applications? Is what we're doing, can it be maintained? Can it be sustained? What the cybersecurity is a topic on its own. It's another webinar. We could be sitting here for 2 hours. So yeah, I think if you embrace skills, and these days the things are not difficult. I think Will a couple of times used the word passionate. That's key to me. If you are passionate, you'll always find the time, you'll always find a way, and you learn skills. I mean, you have access to internet, you've got everything you need. All you need is a passion and determination. So back to you, Nicola.
Brilliant, thanks. So I think we've probably got enough time to just fit this one more in, and this is a good question. I would definitely want to hear the response to this coming from project and program management. So there are different definitions of digital transformation, and different organisations have different banners and approach it in a different way, their projects. How would you measure the success of a digital transformation to say that that's been successful, and how do you define it along the journey? And I think that one, Will, can you give us your insights into that?
Yeah, happily. Yeah. I think, let me go back actually just to when I was talking about the context. So I think I can maybe use the same model actually just to answer this one. So, I mean, I think your measures of success, if it's a business transformation, you've got to have some kind of measure about the customer in there. Whether that's a net promoter score, or some kind of feedback in terms of customer. Of course, you'll see whether they're taking up your new offerings, your digital offerings, and your new revenue channels as well. So you'll be able to measure all of those things much better than you would have been able to in the past as well. If you're doing a kind of digital optimization, it's kind of, I think it's more about speed. I mean, people say agility, but agility is like very difficult to measure. I think it's how quickly you can do things, I think. And for me, that's more about speed. That's, for example, new product introductions. I think if that's where you want to be faster into the market, that's, just measuring the life cycle from an MPD point of view would be good. And of course, percentage of revenues online would also be a good one in there. If it's technical optimization, I think there's a resilience measure. So are you more resilient by being in the cloud? Are you able to scale up, scale down? Are you able to fall back and recover from a disaster more effectively by being more cloud-based? And I think from a technology automation, if that's your kind of scale of your transformation, then a lot of that becomes about the cost to serve, because that's mostly often a productivity-based way of going about it. So I think they mostly lend themselves to productivity measures like cost to serve, for example, and quality. So that's that would be my approach to answering it.
Brilliant, thanks, Will. So we've got a few minutes left. So I think just to end, if we can just have one key takeaway from everybody. So Will, we'll go with you first.
Well, you've probably guessed mine already, Nicola. It's about context. It's like copy the right case study. Don't go off on to be too ambitious or under ambitious. You've got to find your own context, and I think that will help you uncover your own critical success factors, which is really important. And don't forget, uncover is a brilliant word in English because it means it's got two slightly different meanings. One is to reveal something that you knew already. So, you'll be able to predict what those ones are, those critical success factors will be, and you can just unveil them, as it were, as you go through. And the other meaning of uncover is discover. Is actually find out, and you'll definitely find out some new stuff as you go along. We had a classic example, again, if I use Maersk as the example, where we're moving stuff like crazy into the cloud. It was volume based. We were kind of going volume based, and we realized after a little while we should have been going value based. So it's those kind of insights that you get as you go along. But context is the key word for me.
Thanks, Will. And Ondrej?
Yep. So I'd say successful digital transformation needs to have a really strong vision behind it that needs to be aligned to whatever is valuable to your business and your customers. There are three key things in my opinion. It's how the organization is structured. That'll help you to realize your vision. It's also about the skills that we give to our people, because that enables them loads of things as time goes on. Need to focus on process, because effectively you need to do the right things and you need to do them right. If you do something very efficiently and ultimately it's the wrong thing to do, or something has a very little impact, you will have very little value at the end of the day. And then there is a technology. Let's not forget about that, because that can also enable quite a lot of things, but it has to be the right product and you have to use it in the right way. Okay, I think that's me done. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thanks, Ondrej. And Saurabh?
Well, Ondrej has already pointed out whatever I wanted to say, but yes, I think it is the alignment with the business. I think digital transformation, if you talk from the perspective of say IT, okay, it has to be aligned with your business goals. Your goals, why you want to do this, okay, why you want to actually go digital, has to be very, very clear. You have to align yourself, with the business goals, and then move along the way. Okay, so even if it means, I do understand that there would be budgets, budget constraints, etc. But it's the value that the transformation brings into your entire business that counts, rather than it's what is affecting you on the pocket in the short term. So you need to have a long-term vision, and it has to be aligned with your business goals. And you use your IT in an efficient manner so that it becomes more of an enabler and not doing the redundant tasks that they spending most of the time on. So that is one of the key things I would say that you need to focus on.
Brilliant. Thanks, Saurabh. So we're at the end of our hour slot. So thank you for the panelists, and thank you everybody for joining. Please do get in touch if you want any more information. So at IG, we help organisations transform to a new digital future. We will send out some information in an email follow-up. So if you have any more questions, or you just want to have a chat about things moving forward in your organisation, please do get in touch, and we'll see if we can help you. Brilliant. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for the invitation.
Thanks, Nicola.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.